Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on the Brommer 18 channel. My name is Ash and this is your home for career mode tactics here on FIFA 22 all across YouTube. Welcome back to another video here where we are showing you how to recreate real tactics in game. Today we're having a look at Carlo Ancelotti's Christmas tree formation. That is the 4-3-2-1 system that saw them win a Champions League once again in the 06-07 season. Of course, he did have a range of different formations and systems across his reign at AC Milan, including the more narrow diamond 4-1-2-1-2. But this is one that I want to look at in particular, most importantly because this is my favourite team ever. You know, as I mentioned in a previous video where I've covered this, which we'll get onto shortly, I'm not an AC Milan fan, but this team was just my absolute favourite. You know, it reminds me of my childhood, it reminds me of that team that was just sort of the pinnacle in that time period. So absolutely buzzing to get into this one today. Cannot wait whatsoever. First things first, before we do get into it, one, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also check out my Patreon. The link is down below. You can get access to exclusive tactics videos that I don't post here on the channel, as well as my FIFA 22 custom tactics package where I give you deep dive breakdowns, ratings and rankings of every tactic that we do cover here on the channel. Very, very good. There's also a whole range of other perks as well. Lots of very kind people that are already part of my Patreon and kindly supporting me, and you can be one of them as well, so do go and check that out. With that being said, let's get into the system. So first things first, we have already covered this in FIFA 20, which was a couple of years ago now, and what you might be thinking, well, what's different about this one? Well, one, it's a case of, you know, FIFA has changed since then. The tactics have improved, the tactics system has improved since we did that last video. Lots of changes and additions and stuff. Two, the game plays differently to what it did in FIFA 20, so he made a couple of tweaks based on that. And three, just as I've improved as an analyst and a scout and watching teams, I've made you know, little tweaks based on that as well, because, you know, just out of my own improvement and noticing things that I wouldn't have noticed before and picking up on that. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So there's a lot of fresh stuff that you can look into this system. With regards to the formation itself, it is this 4-3-2-1, the Christmas tree. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of formation changes here. There's not an actual formation that you can pick. The best one to probably go with is the 4-5-1 attack, and then from there you're going to have to make a lot of changes. First things first, the fullbacks, you want to change them both to wing backs. So Hernandez is left wing back and Calabria is right wing back. This is going to enable them to get further forward. If you're playing a system with no wingers, it's very important to have something like this rather than flat fullbacks. You've also got to remember that these guys are creating the width, and at wing back they will get further wide and they'll get further forward as well. So we've got that flat back four. Then we've got Benacer here, who is a defensive midfielder. He's a CDM. And then next to him with Kessié and Tonali, we have left central midfielder and right central midfielder. So this would have been the Gattuso and sort of Ambrosini roles, whereas Pirlo was that sort of deep lying playmaker in behind him. So you want them both as left and right central midfielders. It's important for them to be left and right because then they're going to get out wide a little bit more in the defensive area. You want them covering those half spaces with a lack of wingers. So that's very important as well. Finally, the two attack midfielders, Seedorf and the Kaka roles. What we have here is left attacking midfielder and right attacking midfielder. Again, similar principles to the left and right central midfielders, is that occasionally, whilst they are sort of central-minded players, they'll occasionally drift out wide because they need to with that lack of wingers. They'll help support the wing backs when they need to, and also get into those half spaces a little bit more and occupy them, those pockets in the advanced areas. So that's very important as well. One thing I want to talk to you about very quickly is the lineup here. You'll notice it's a little bit different to obviously what AC Milan play in real life. I've just tried to match the players to the roles as best as I could. So we've got Benacer as a deep line playmaker, Kessié as that more box-to-box midfielder, Brahim as the attack midfielder who doesn't trap back as much, whereas Rebic is the one who does get back a bit more. Tonali's that more aggressive-minded midfielder. Struggled to find one like that really. Could have gone for Bakayoko, but I think Tonali does that role just fine. Leao as well, very tough to find a striker like Filippo Inzaghi in this system, but he was the closest one to them compared to Ibrahimovic and Giroud, although he's not really like Inzaghi at all. Right then, on to the tactics. First things first, I better mention that I've got a balanced tactic here, but there is also an attacking and a defensive game plan as well that I'm going to talk to you about at the end of the video, how you can alter it depending on the situation. So first things first, with the balanced game plan, defensive style is pressure on heavy touch. That's going to allow you to instigate a press in certain moments. You can complement this by also activating the team press on your D-pad, which is left and then down on that D-pad, and it's good to filter that in with this pressure on heavy touch. It means that they're only going to instigate presses. Usually it'll be instigated by the likes of Kaká and Seedorf. They were usually the ones who would instigate a press higher up the pitch, and then they'd go from there. The width is actually to 28. Now obviously you want it to be narrow, but the reason why we've not gone for something a bit more extreme, 20 or 10, is because you've got a lot of players in those central areas, which means you can be a little bit more lenient with it, but you're still trying to keep that narrow, compact shape, because that is something that is a hallmark not just of this AC Milan team, but of Carlo Ancelotti teams throughout the years, throughout his managerial career. Very, very narrow, compact. They don't give anything away if they can help it, so that's very important as well. The depth is 60, and that's going to give you a mid-block. It's just up a touch to try and play into the hands of that pressure on heavy touch as well. Again, it gives you a balanced outlook, which is helpful for that pressure on heavy touch, because you're going to be pressing occasionally and you've got that balanced approach. Offensively then, what do we have here in the ball? Well, the same really for the majority of Carlo Ancelotti teams. Again, very reminiscent of his sort of principles, I guess, with just a different formation lineup. In this case, we've got slow build-up. That's going to allow you to play out from the back and play through the thirds. Lots of options there, particularly in the central areas. And then chance creation is possession, and it's the same thing as well. Now, this is going to change depending on the game plan, and we'll go into that a little bit later on. But generally what you're going to find is a lot of players showing for the ball. The runs is really going to be dictated by the player instructions that I'll talk to you about very shortly. So as a result, we've got possession on this one. The width is down to 10, and you're going to make it very, very compact in there. Lots of short passing options. The width will be created by the two wing backs, and that's another reason why you want to change them to wing backs as opposed to basic fullbacks, because they're the ones who are going to get out wide. Other than that, a lot of the players really going to be condensed. Again, the same with the attacking midfielders as well. The way we change them to left and right attacking midfield, they'll occasionally drift out. But to make sure they're not doing it too much, we also want a compact offensive shape, and that is why we have it on 10. The players in the box is up to 7, and that's going to give you roughly 3 to 4. You're going to have the striker, you're going to have the attacking midfielders, and you might also have either one of the wing backs, but probably not, or the box-to-box midfielder, which would have been Ambrosini. In this case, it is Franck Kessié. So it's worth bearing that one in mind. On to the set pieces. With corners, it's up to 4, and that is the same with free kicks as well. I didn't spot anything that they did differently in this regard. Sometimes we drop off the free kicks in other ones because teams like to often play it short and still retain possession and play through the thirds. In this case, there was still an emphasis on that set pieces, getting people forward, the likes of the defenders. And this is what you'll notice with that. So with 4 on either side, you're going to get a lot of players into the box. You'll notice in the gameplay that we do score from a cross and from a corner with a layout header, so that's also really handy as well. Right then, on to the player instructions. Starting off with Mike Maignan in goal. It should of course be Dida in that case, and we'll work our way through the field. So we've got him on comes to crosses and sweeper keeper as well. Comes to crosses, I always mention in these videos, really helpful. I would advise you to have it on in all cases, unless you're really trying to replicate a system. But in this case, Dida was very much a front foot type of goalkeeper, and you can talk about that with the sweeper keeper element as well, because he's looking to often try and claim balls as much as possible. Again, I do talk about how it doesn't work a whole lot in this game, but we do change it to that anyway, just in the hope that sometimes he will, sort of seize the initiative and come and claim the ball. The two centre-backs, there is a slight tweak here. Now, it would have been Nesta and Maldini. So as you can imagine, Paolo Maldini, particularly when he's, nearly 40 years old at this point, he's not looking to charge around. And it's also a staple of him in general. It was conservative interceptions in this case, and what that's going to do is you're not going to find him stepping out too much. He's always going to be on the cover, looking to protect his centre-back partner, which in this case, we've got Tamura here. He's on aggressive interceptions. He's the one who will step out, try and intercept the ball, try and win the ball and put it on the opponent. Whereas with Maldini, he was on the cover a bit more and he's going to look to protect. So it's a good balance. You've got one who's aggressive, one who's going to be a bit more cautious, and you get them sort of intertwining and working out well together. It's a good complementary duo. In terms of the wing backs, the both of them are on the same. We've got them on join the attack and we've got them on overlap as well. I don't really need to explain too much in that. You get the gist of it. With them being the only guys on the wing, they of course are going to be manning that side on both the right and left. So it's very important to have these guys and getting them into the game as much as possible to have them on join the attack and overlap. Next up then with Benacer, who would have been Andrea Pirlo in this case. We have him as that deep lying playmaker. So his defensive behaviour is balanced. Now it's more of a man marking system when in open play. At least from the central midfielders. However, because man marking doesn't work very well on this game, you often find the opponent's central midfielders coming into the box unmarked. We go with balanced, and hopefully that gives us the best upside. That's what I've noticed when playing games compared to man mark, which they don't seem to do in area. With balanced, you can at least have something that's a little bit more plays into the meta of the game. So that's why we go for balance in that case. His attacking support is on stay back while attacking to make sure that he isn't getting forward. You might notice in the gameplay occasionally Benacer does get forward. That's because I switched it to a different game plan and didn't realise that I didn't change his instructions. So do just bear that in mind. Otherwise he should be manning and shielding, screening that back four and providing an extra pivot in possession. His interceptions are on conservative, and that's very important as well. Again, you don't want him being dragged out too much. He's there to man the central areas of the pitch. The two central midfielders on either side are the ones who are going to do the work for him, do that hard work. He's there to be protected. You're trying to get him on possession as much as possible and not chasing around for the ball if you can help it. So that is on conservative interceptions. His defensive position is cover centre for a reason we just spoke about. Again, the two central midfielders will fill those gaps when they need to, and the attacking mids who will occasionally track back. And then positioning freedom is free roam. This is something that obviously we didn't have back in FIFA 20 when I last covered this tactic. And it gives you a deep lying playmaker feel because they're able to roam around across the width of the pitch, get into different positions, and it's so much better to try and play the ball out from the back. It does make it easier on you and a more effective in that sense. So we've got him on free roam, and that does the best job of replicating that deep lying playmaker. So with the two central midfielders, we've got two different roles here. We'll start off with Tonali. He is the Gattuso, and as you can imagine, the real pit bull. You know, the aggressive, ball-winning central midfielder. So we've got him on stay back while attacking and stay on the edge of the box for crosses. Again, he's looking to break up any opposition counter-attacks. He should always be in a position to win the ball if and when he can. That's why you don't want him driving forward. You don't want him getting into the box. He's there acting as not only a possessional pivot, more so Pirlo there, but also just that layer of protection and that blanket, I guess. And we can play that into the hands of interceptions as well, where it's aggressive interceptions. Again, explanatory of him. We want him getting out to the ball as much as possible, protecting Pirlo in this case and the rest of his sort of defence. And so aggressive interceptions is a good way to try and replicate this system. You will notice a slight degrade on stamina. So it's important to have players with high stamina in this role, but it's not as bad as it has been in previous years. And also, it's worth mentioning that you don't exert as much energy in this system because of the fact it's slow build up and possession. So that also helps as well, and it should mean that you're able to retain that sort of level of stamina. Finally, the defensive position is on cover wing. Very important as well. As we've already spoken about, these two guys are going to be the ones getting dragged out, not the deep line playmaker. On the other hand, we have Kessié playing that Ambrosini role, who is that more of a box-to-box midfielder. So his attacking support is unbalanced. And why is it unbalanced? Well, if we have it on get forward, he's going to be trying to penetrate in behind a lot, making runs in behind the striker. That's not what we want. We want him just supporting attacks more, getting into the box if and when he needs to. So that's why for crosses, he's on getting to the box. But with attacking support, it's just balanced, which means he's not going to be committing too much and leaving that position vacant. He's going to be more of a box-to-box midfielder, which is very, very important. Again, as we've spoken about, defensive position is also on cover wing. Right then, on to the two attacking midfielders. First off with Rebic, who is going to be the Seedorf in this role. Slightly different roles here. We've got him on comeback on defence. That's very important. Again, he's more of a box-to-box guy as well, but he's just doing his work a bit further up the field compared to someone like Ambrosini in this case. So we've got him tracking back, and we've got him on getting to the box for crosses as well. His positioning freedom is stick to position, which is also important because of the fact he's a left attacking midfielder. He'll drift in those half spaces a lot more, whereas compared to when you have a central attacking midfielder on this game, they're a bit more stagnant. But when they're on a left or right, it does mean they're going to drift around a bit more, which is really, really helpful. The game does actually do a good job of replicating that. So if we move over to Brahim Diaz, obviously you'll see slightly different roles. Getting to the box is the same as well as positioning freedom, but this time with defensive support, it's basic. And what you found in this system is that often, and again, the principles of a Carlo Ancelotti system in general, is 2 banks of 4. 2 banks of 4 always. So in this case, you've got the 4 defenders, the 3 central midfielders, and also Rebic, who would have helped his midfield line. And then in the case with Brahim Diaz or Kaká, it would have been, he'll track back when needed, but not always. That's important as well, because you don't want him constantly exerting his energy having to do that. You want him in a position when you're looking to counter on teams, or you just regain possession. You want him in a position generally to be able to exert his dominance and really impact the game in an attacking sense. So we have that on basic, so we'll only track back when he needs to. Finally, with Rafael Leao, replicating that Pippo Inzaghi role, we've got him on stay central. You don't want him drifting out wide. Inzaghi's not much of a mover anyway. Let's face it, he's just a poacher, an out-and-out poacher, a one-touch kind of guy. And bear that in mind with, or couple that in with, getting behind on attacking runs as well. It's always spoken about Inzaghi, how he was offside all the time. And one of the reasons is because he's constantly trying to penetrate the opposition's back line. And with that in mind, you obviously want him on getting behind, looking to try and penetrate the defence. And that is how you're going to really, see a lot of success with the striker. That's, again, how we do score a goal with Leao in the game. Finally, defensive support, he stay forward. He acts as a really good out ball and outlet. He can hold the ball up as well when he needs to, and just lay it off to the attacking midfielders who will get in around him as well. So that rounds off the balanced game plan. Now let me talk to you about defensive and attacking game plans. What Ancelotti does so well, he will adapt slightly depending on the situations. He's not stuck in a rigid sense. He will tweak things when he needs to, and that's what they did as well in this case. So with the tactics, there are a few tweaks. This time our defensive style is drop back, really trying to get men behind the ball, as opposed to before when it was more of a pressure on heavy touch. You got something a bit more passive and defensive this time. The width stays the same, but then the depth goes down to 40, and it's still a mid block because you don't want to be too passive, and they never looked to be too passive. But you want to drop off a little bit and try and limit the space to a greater degree of the opposition being able to play in behind you and go over the top with through balls. Finally, with players in the box, we move this down to 6, so you've only got 3 in the box each time, and that should be the 3 attacking midfielders. And then with corners and free kicks, these are also moved down from 4 to 3 in order just to have a little bit more protection in case the opposition win it and look to try and counter on you. You can then protect from that. There are also a couple of tweaks to the instructions as well. We noticed that Ambrosini then becomes less of a box-to-box mid and more of that sort of protector along with Gattuso. So in this case, rather than having balanced attack and get into the box across, he has stay on the edge of the box across and stay back while attacking. So it's going to give you an extra layer of protection. Couple that in with Kaká, who this time, rather than being on basic defensive support, he's this time on comeback on defense. So you also want him tracking back if and when you can, just to again be really supporting everyone. Whereas with the striker, you can keep him this time on basic defense support, so he only has to come back when he needs to, rather than staying forward all the time. Just bear in mind that I haven't changed any of these that I haven't needed to for the defensive game plan, which is why you're only seeing balanced. Just the ones that I'm signalling here is what you need to change. So what about the attacking game plan then? When you're looking to push for a goal, when you feel like you got to go for broke, for example. Again, they did change it a little bit. So we've got press after possession loss this time, and they instigate more of a counter press, trying to get in a sense of urgency more compared to the balanced game plan. So you're going to find more of a gegenpressing system there. And then the depth is pushed up to 70 in order to supplement that press. So this time they are playing more of a high line. Not too high though. You've got to remember it was still the likes of Maldini and etc. who, you know, he couldn't play a massively high line because of his lack of pace this time. But he still could read the game well. That's why you're not looking to go all the way to 100. Also, to complement that press, the width is this time increased to 40, and what it does, it allows you to get out wide a bit further. The fact that you've got so many players in the central areas means you can get away with this more, but it's also risk versus reward. You know, they feel like they can go for it a bit more and take that risk when they are needing to push for a goal, and when they're, you know, say a goal behind, for example. Elsewhere, going forward with players in the box, this is up to 9, which means you're going to get roughly 4 to 5 players in the box. You would then find maybe the likes of Gattuso getting in there, or one of the fullbacks as well. But with the set pieces, I've kept this at 4 and 4. If you're in the last few minutes and you desperately need a goal, then you can make a change on the fly and change this to 5 should you wish. Maybe you can get a goalkeeper in the box for a corner in the late stages in stoppage time. But I did keep this at 4 at 4. It does still give you enough players to pose a real threat from set piece situations. Player instructions are also changed slightly. This time with Gattuso, rather than stay back while attacking and stay on the edge of the box across, we've got him a balanced attack and get into the box across. So then he does get forward more. He does take more of an active role. Obviously, sometimes they would then make subs if they felt like they needed to take Gattuso off and find someone, you know, more suited to that role. And then with an attacking midfielder as well, in this case Kaka, we have him on stay forward. So this time he's in a position, if they do regain the ball in their own half, you can get him at the field further. And then he can impact the game again at a greater degree than compared to if he was tracking back and he was deeper in his own half. Again, I should probably say this has just messed around with all the lineup and stuff. Just ignore that. Don't worry about that. Again, just trying to show you guys any tweaks that you would need to make to the system. Right then, on that note, I think we've just about rounded it off for this video then, guys. Absolutely loved playing with this system. So fun. Lots of nostalgia as well. If you've got any questions at all about the system, then do not hesitate to get at me in the comment section and I will do my best to get back to you. Don't forget, as I spoke about at the start of the video, to look into my Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive tactics videos for FIFA 22, and on top of that, my FIFA 22 custom tactics package, where I'll give a deep dive and ratings and rankings on every single tactic that I cover on the channel, along with a whole host of other perks. We're also going to show you the gameplay at the end of this video as well, so do stick around for that if you want to watch that in greater detail to see how I play with the system. Make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure to ring the bell as well so you get notifications every time I upload. Don't forget to check out the links in the description, such as my Twitter, give me a follow on there, and also my affiliate links where you can get access to all of my gear and equipment. You can buy them for no more money than you're already going to pay, but it does give the channel a little kickback. Great way to support me without paying any extra money. On that note, we are going to finish the video off there. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, I will see you for that one.
segnato il Milan con il numero 17, Rafael Leao. Gol dell'Inter con il numero 10 Lautaro Martinez. Pesca dalla panchina l'allenatore dell'Inter con questo cambio. Lascia il campo con il numero 20 Adrian Çalhanoğlu. Entra in campo con il numero 8 Mattias Vecino. Pesca dalla panchina l'allenatore dell'Inter con questo cambio. Termina quella partita con il numero 77 Marcelo Brozovic. Dentro con il numero 22 Arturo Vidal. Comunicazione di servizio, il signor Davide Fabronato è atteso urgentemente dal fratello Stefano alla porta numero 7 dello stadio. Martinez. Gol dell'Inter con il